Z Nation, what is good? Just got done with chapter 1 of How to Win. Let me get the camera there. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Boom, chapter 1 in the books. By the way, it is 12:45 in the morning, making it Wednesday. And I just got done reading a chapter of a book. What's up? Oh. Chapter's a bit long, as in it took about 13 pages, a lot longer wordage in each page in the other book. So bear with me as I break down. Overall, chapter 1, if you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. Overall, the main theme of this chapter has to do with understanding people and their situations they're going through, being able to put yourself in their shoes, get a sense of what they experienced and why they made the decisions, for why they came to the conclusion of what led them to that decision, and no need to criticize. And ultimately, the chapter ends by coming up having written one principle here: don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Big examples of this were brought into light in the chapter through famous early American criminals such as Al Capone. Is the main one I know of. A dude named, what is it here? Two Gun Crowley. I don't know his first name. I had it here earlier. Have it. Two Gun Crowley, I guess that's his name. Two Gun Crowley, a famous New York criminal, who stated at his death, right before his death, because I believe he had a self-inflicted death. He was put in the slammer and then ultimately, what's the phrase I'm looking for? He was then ultimately given the death penalty. How about that? The death penalty. So a short time before this, here we go. Crowley was sentenced to an electric chair. There we go. Arrived at his death house in Sing Sing. That was a prison in New York. And he said, "This is what I get for killing people." Oh, that's what he said. Like, the author's asking, this is what he could have said. This is what I get for killing people. But no, he didn't say that. Instead, he said, "This is what I get for defending myself." So in this, it's an example of he was content with what he was doing. And because of that, you kind of have to reverse engineer why he was comfortable with the decision of how he went about living a criminal lifestyle and why that was the case. Al Capone, for example, believed that he spent the best years of his life giving people the lighter pleasures, helping them have a good time, and all he got was abuse and the existence of a hunted man. Alright, sorry, I just got a text while I was filming there. Other example, it was Abraham Lincoln, and talking about Abraham Lincoln never criticized a man in his later years, especially after confronting, I think it was another politician at one time, and having to stand out with him. He got to the point where Lincoln had to appoint many generals for a certain battle, and a lot of them failed, but ultimately he always stuck true to the generals and such. And there was at one point, actually, a famous general missed out on the opportunity of capitalizing a key victory. And Lincoln was so appalled by him not capitalizing, he wrote out this very stingent letter criticizing him about it. But it turns out he actually never sent it, because Lincoln had the self-awareness and the understanding and sense that if he was placed in that general's shoes on the battlefield, witnessing all the bloodshed that took place, witnessing all of the horror, the outlandish, horrific noises that would have taken place during war, he certainly would have reconsidered the decision to go into battle in that sense. And then also the last example, another example I want to give is a famous test pilot and performer of an air show was once performing, and he was performing a World War II propeller plane, and he'd been flying, but it turned out that both engines suddenly stopped when he was flying, performing these maneuvers, but he managed to land the plane, but it was badly damaged, but nobody was hurt. Anyways, this pilot could have easily, well, it turns out the mechanic filled the plane with the wrong fuel, meaning he filled it with jet fuel and not gasoline. So anyways, this pilot could have easily have gone back to the mechanic and ridiculed him, and certainly been extremely upset with him and criticized him and bantered him and all that. But he actually just went up to the he went up to the mechanic, and he said, to show you, he went up to him, hugged him, or put his big arm around the man's shoulder and said, to show you, I'm sure that you will never do this again. I want you to service my F-51 tomorrow. Again, kind of going back to understanding. And one quote I really liked in this was, you can teach a man anything, but he will never learn anything. Kind of playing off the notion that no matter what you learn, you still need to take action on what you learned to be able to fully learn it. And then also, the last bit of this chapter concludes with an excerpt from a 50s article. I don't know if they gave a year. I might have just made that 1950s reference completely up. But it's a reprint favorite. What is this? Reprint favorite. Classic American journalism. I guess it's an article. Anyways, it's called Father Forgets. And it's a story about a father who is able to continually criticize his child for all of he deems it improper ways to be a child in that sense. But then the father comes to realization and understanding that these things he has told himself that you're doing. There was so much that was good and fine. What did I say? I got used to summarizing these chapters because they're much longer. There was so much that was good and fine and true in your character. The little heart of you... Okay, no. Okay, here we go. Well, son, it was shortly afterwards that my paper slipped from my hands and terrible sinking fear came over me. What was the habit been doing to me? The habit being criticizing his son all the time. The habit of finding fault, of reprimanding. This was my reward to you for being a boy. It is not that I did not love you, it was that I expected too much of youth. I was measuring you by the yardstick of my own years. And there was so much that was good and fine and true in your character. The little heart of you was as big as the dawn itself over the wide hills. This was shown by your spontaneous impulse to rush in and kiss me goodnight. Nothing else matters tonight, son. I have come to your bedside in the darkness, and I have knelt there ashamed. It is feasible atonement, and I know you would never not understand that these things I've told them to you during your waking hours. This is the father talking to his son, of course. I'm afraid I have visualized you as a man, referring to his son, child. I don't know what the age is in this description, but certainly much younger than a man. Yet, as I see you now, son, crumpled and weary in your cot, I see that you are still a baby. Yesterday you were in your mother's arms, your head on your shoulder. I've asked too much, too much. Instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do what they do. That's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism, as it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. To know all is to forgive all. As Dr. Johnson said, no idea who Dr. Johnson is. God himself, sir, does not propose to judge man until the end of his days. Why should you and I? Chapter 1 in the books. Peace.